Hi, Dr. Barbara here. Just want you to know I launched my book into the world, Heeding the Caregiver Call. This is the story of Barbara Ella Milton Sr. and Alzheimer's disease. That's my mom. And I wrote a book about her, 70 essays. I wrote it purposely so that you can go through either essay by essay from front to back, or you could just jump in whatever section of the book that you might want to refer to. This is written primarily for people who are caregivers. So I offer lots of practical information in here about caregiving, particularly around things like consulting services, elder lawyers, when you know you need to get a power of attorney and get help, when and how and why you discuss funerary plans and long-term plans, how it's important to make peace with the past. That was a big issue for me and my mother. I was an only child, and she, we didn't have a warm and fuzzy relationship, but I'll tell you what, we made peace with our past, and it made all the difference in the world. I had a reviewer said that the book reads like a love story. If you'd have told me that, years before my mother was diagnosed, before 2015, I would have thought you were crazy. But what we did was to reconcile the past, and we learned to lean on each other, trust each other, and move through this process with as much dignity and grace as we could. We relied on faith. We relied on help. We relied on social services. We relied on all the strategies that kept my mother safe, whether she was in her home or dealing with the family car, which was a really big issue, and also dealing with any other things that could have been potential safety concerns. I also introduced you to my mom's cat, Pepper, a family member, mom's biggest confidant, a source of great comfort. And I share with you the importance of keeping your eyes on your pets as well when you're caring for someone with Alzheimer's. That's a very important thing. I added a lot of information in here about ways that you can balance out care, self-care, and your care. And I also, as I said, there's 70 stories here, but you can go in and pick whatever one that works for you and what you need information around. And let me tell you what you will not find in this book. You won't find me vilifying any human service, social service, healthcare, nursing home provider. It won't happen. Rather, my social work training begs you to understand about the interplay of systems, the interplay of civic engagement, on making sure we have the proper levels of service, the quality service we need for poor people in our communities. My family was poor. We weren't well off. We relied on the social networks, the social contract with Medicaid and with our Medicare. And, thank God for those programs. They're grossly underfunded. So, very important that you stay involved in the life of the nursing home you choose to put your parent in, and you fight for advocacy. You advocate for more money in Medicaid. We should have more money in social programs than bombs. That's just my opinion. We have a major war here. There's an assault on the poor and working class people. And, the way it shows itself is in substandard schools and substandard healthcare, etc., particularly for long-term care. And we got to do something about it. So I won't vilify people. It isn't to say there aren't people in nursing homes that, are slackers or may not work to a professional degree that you have expectations about. In that case, speak up. Stay involved in the nursing home, build relationships, go to those team meetings, talk with the administrators, show up, be there for your parent. If you can't do it, find someone in the family who can do it. That is really, really important to do. And listen, because we know that Alzheimer's is a fatal and progressive disease, very important that you figure out ways to do that pre-planning stuff. with funerals and such, and that you honor your parents' wishes. That's very important. And include them in all of this, right? You want to include them as much as you can. But when it comes to that power of attorney, make sure you get that power of attorney before they lose their capacity to make good decisions. This is very important. So do that at the earliest stages as you can. Get that power of attorney signed. You know, when I first took on my mother's care, she was already in the moderate stages of Alzheimer's. I had no idea. So that means she was probably in the disease for 3-5 years already. We had clues, but we never put it together because she withdrew. She became more isolated, more to herself, and plus the way our relationship was in the beginning, it wasn't like I saw her every single day because I lived 2 hours away. And myself, I'm battling bladder cancer. So that was part of the story too. Like, how do I balance my medical situation, my medical needs as an only child, jumping into care for my mother? So in the front end, in our relationship, not warm and fuzzy, I'm attending to my medical needs. I wasn't there every day. I'm 2 hours away. We called regularly, but it's stuff you don't see on the phone. So by the time she made this call to me in the fall of 2015, and I went down to Camden where she lived, and I walked into her home, I knew right then and there something was wrong. And then when we took the legal steps to get the power of attorney, because my mother had already understood, figuring out numbers, writing checks, being on a computer, making phone calls, dealing with bills, dealing with repairs in the home. These are things she couldn't manage anymore. They were too stressful. Cooking was more stressful. Everything was harder and more difficult. And then she had this sense that, something was not right. Like, this wasn't even her house. A lot of times she was perpetually sitting down and stepping up, sitting down and stepping up. I'm like, Mom, where you going? She's like, I got to go home. I'm like, you are home. That just happened all the time. So when I stepped in there and got that legal authority to handle her health care and her financial affairs, whoa, bills were in arrears, health insurance payments not made, auto insurance payments not made, the insurance on her home, homeowner's insurance had lapsed. Major stuff was happening, utilities and such, big bills not getting paid. It was a nightmare. And I had no clue because people with Alzheimer's, at the early and the middle stages, denial's a big thing. And also they do this thing called confabulating where they make up stuff because like they put on this front that things are okay, or they give you an explanation for something, So until you can get in there and really see what's happening, and I encourage people to do that. Like, I know it feels like you might be intrusive, that you're violating privacy. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to jump in there to make sure your loved one's okay. And when I got in there, so much wasn't okay. And we worked at it methodically, getting her to all her healthcare appointments. She was 1 year behind a pacemaker surgery, a defibrillator pacemaker. The battery had died. And there were all these calls backed up on her answering machine that she could no longer answer. And so when I started getting into the phone calls, I'm seeing she's missed doctor's appointments and near cutoffs with utilities, and she still knew to go over to the Comcast or go downtown to PSC&G and pay these bills. But she was not managing her life well. And they're not going to tell you about that. You have to go in there and see it to know what's happening. And that's what Alzheimer's is. So it's the sooner you can get in there, the sooner you can get the authority to take care of business on behalf of your loved ones, get all that nonsense out of the way and all that legal stuff out of the way. Then you just set about making sure your loved one is getting the health care they need, getting all of the services they need, and that you're spending time loving them, caring for them, making sure they're well, and balancing that with making sure you're well too. Because as they say when you're on an airplane, if those oxygen masks fall down and you're carrying a baby, no, you don't put the mask on the baby first, because you'd be no good if you were knocked out. You put your mask on first, and then you care for the one in your care. So you got to take care of you. And I figured out some ways to do that. I'm passing that on to you through this book. And listen, if you like the book, tell someone about it. Maybe the book will inspire you to write about your story too. Write your story. I wrote this book because my mother insisted that we tell stories of Black people and gay people, and that people understand that we get Alzheimer's too. And that was really important to my mother. She said that to me the day she was diagnosed, and we went searching for info, and we didn't see any pictures of Black and brown people, and we didn't see anything referencing rainbow people. So we said we were going to tell her story. And then when we were about to set on that journey, this was in the winter of 2018, after Mom had run the course, moved into a long-term care facility, no longer 2 hours from me in travel, but a mere 12 to 15 minutes away from me. She was settled into this nursing home. She was enjoying the experience. She was well. She had some things going on, of course. She started declining, because that's what you do in the later stages of Alzheimer's. But her spirit was good, smiling, joking, really the life of the unit that she was on. She considered herself going to work, and they were so kind to her and letting her hang out at the nurse's station and giving her paper to put in folders. And because my mother had a tenacious work ethic till the very end. But anyway, they treated her with such dignity, and I was so blessed to find the home that we found for her. And then when it looked like things were fairly stable, I said, Mommy, we can now start to think about writing this book we talked about writing many years ago. And by that time, I had amassed an enormous amount of video clips and journal entries and Facebook postings and conversations and lived experience with my mother. And we said, all right, we're going to start to write this book. I said, I'm going to go away for a couple weeks, get some rest. I was in between some chemo and some surgeries. And I said, I'm going to get some rest. I'm going to give some thought to our book. When I come back, we're going to start writing it. That was January 2019. I came home on the 17th of January. I presented my mother with a mock-up of a book. I printed out a piece of paper with a title on it and a picture of her and I. And that was called Heeding the Caregiver Call too. That was so clear to me. This was going to be the title of our book. And I laid out these 70 essays that I was thinking about writing. And I presented this to my mother on January 17th. She held the book. She brought the book to her face. Her eyes were wide open. I said, hey, what do you think of it? She said, this is good. And I said, well, I need to go get rest now. And because I was on that red eye in the morning. And I said, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll get started on the book. Well, I came back on January 18th. And I landed in the nurse's station when I first entered the unit. And they said, it's so good to see you. Your mother's not wanting to eat today. And I'm like, what? That hasn't been a problem. And they said, no, but she's not wanting to eat today. And I went into my mom's room. My mom was just laying there. She was responding to my voices, her eyes were closed. And I said, Mommy, I want to feed you. You just need to eat. Food's very important. So she allowed me to eat her, but never opened her eyes. That was January 18th. On January 22nd, in just 4 days' time, that Alzheimer's took a turn for the worse in her mind and her brain. And from what the doctors were saying to me, she was beginning to have her organs shut down. It was a very sad day. And we put her on hospice that day, January 22nd. And on January 31st, she was gone. So when I came back from Puerto Rico and she held this book and she said this was good, I knew what it meant to her. And I promised her no matter what was happening with my cancer in my life, I was going to get this book done for you. And your story is going to bless someone. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I'm getting this book out into the world. You can order it directly from me at my website, which is www.drbarbaramiltonjrlcsw.com. That's DRBARBARAMiltonjrlcsw.com. The book is $20. It cost me $5 to ship it to you if you're in the continental United States. I'd be happy to put the book in your hand. And let me tell you one other thing. My mother was a very charitable person. And there was an organization that helped me at the very beginning. And the name of the organization is called the Act Now Foundation. They're based out of Jersey City, Hudson County, New Jersey. Literally the day my mother was diagnosed, this organization was planting its roots in Hudson County. And I happened to meet the executive director of that program. And their services, support, has guided me through. And so we decided that we were going to reserve a portion of the net proceeds from the sale of this book in perpetuity. 20% of the net proceeds of this book for the life of the book will be donated to the Act Now Foundation to fund their dementia services. And when we did our kickoff last night, Act Now Foundation was there, as they've been from day one with us. And so you not only get to get this story and some good practical information and to see this amazing transformation between a mother and a daughter as the roles reversed, where we created and developed a love story on our journey. And not only that, you get to support a very amazing organization doing such good work. And so I appreciate you listening to this video. Like all my videos, put a like there, subscribe to my channel, stay in touch with me on this book's journey, on my cancer journey, on the other writing projects that I'm doing around Black resilience, around the social work profession, around my careers as a social worker, and I stay well also. Stay well during these times. Better days are here. This is January 20th, 2021. New president, new vice president, first person of color, first female in the VP slot. It's a grand day. And we have a president who's committing himself to unifying this nation, to truth, to justice insofar as Black citizens are concerned in this country. And he said a lot of wonderful things. And the thing he most said that so resonated with me today, that President Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. said was, his whole soul is in it. And I believed him. And my whole soul is in this book. My whole soul is in the struggle for social justice also. God bless you. Peace. And be well.